Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Masechtas Gittin, Daf Pei Dalid. We're going to begin on Pei Dalid Amud Aleph, the second line from the top. Tanrabah. Harizeh Gitech. If a man says to his wife that this is your get, Al Minas Sheti Nasi Laploini, on condition that you must marry someone else, specifically this guy. So Harizu lo tinase. So the din is she's not to get married, and we're going to explain what exactly that means. It almost looks like the reason why, as we're going to see, is it looks like he's giving her as a gift. He's giving his ex-wife to a man as some type of a present, which certainly is not acceptable. But if she got married, so because it doesn't break any of the conditions, and the get is chal, so she can stay there. She doesn't lose. So my kamar. So Omar Nachman Hakamer. Harizulo tinasi loy. So first of all, she's not supposed to marry this guy because Shemayarmin Nishehen Naisin Bamatana. Again, it looks like women are being given over. She was given over as a gift, which looks very bad. However, if she in fact does marry someone else, she doesn't have to leave that marriage. So Mary says, 1 second, Mishum Gzeira Lo Mafkin Mine. So you're saying because of a Gzeira, we're not going to remove her from being married to another guy. Vishirin and Esha Sish Alma. And all of a sudden we're going to matter her, who's really an Esha Sish, to the world. So the question is, the condition of marrying Ploni was never fulfilled. Since that's the case, it shouldn't be a get, and she's still an Eshes. So how could we understand that if she would marry someone else, that the din is that lo teitze? Elo Rav Nachman explains like this. Hachikamer. Harizu lo tinase loy. So we say, not that she should marry someone else, she's not allowed to marry this guy, as we said, because Shema Yermin Hashem Noisin B'matana. It looks like that this woman is being given over as a gift. But if she does marry that same guy, because of Gzera, we're not going to have her removed. What does that imply? To this specific guy, she shouldn't marry, which, as we said, why? Which is much what whole achar tinase, but she should marry someone else. But the condition of the get was that she marries this guy specifically. Maybe she can get married today, and divorce tomorrow, and eventually she'll end up marrying that guy. So in other words, like this: let her marry this other guy, some other guy. The condition wasn't fulfilled. Yeah, but eventually she may divorce him. And then she could always marry that guy that she was supposed to marry at the beginning. Ulahach de poligas lehe de Rabbi Yehuda kede meisle. So this is actually something which was brought down. The idmar kainim eni b'shein hayoyim. So a person makes a neder against sleeping. So im ishan l'machar, and he says, if I sleep tomorrow, I'm making a neder from sleeping today if I sleep tomorrow. So I'm Rabbi Yehuda al yishin hayoyim. So he shouldn't go to sleep today because Shema yishin l'machar. Maybe he'll go to sleep tomorrow, and then retroactively it says that the neder is chal if he sleeps tomorrow. So if he sleeps tomorrow, then the neder should be chal of kainim eni b'shin hayoyim, that he's not supposed to sleep today. So don't sleep today because you may end up the neder could be chal. Rav Nachman yishin hayom, let him go to sleep today. We're not concerned about what will be tomorrow, so it doesn't have to do with anything. So he will fulfill his condition later on by not going to sleep tomorrow. We're not concerned. He certainly will fulfill this condition. So too, she will fulfill the condition later after she divorces, and she ends up marrying this other guy. So when it comes to the case of a neder sleeping or not sleeping, that's in your hands. Di'iboy mavriz navshe b'silvasa. If you want, you could prick yourself with thorns. V'loy naim. So therefore, because of that, it's shaykh that you could stay awake. What? So she could always marry this guy, divorce him. What do you mean divorce him? It's not up to her entirely, or at all. El Amarava, this is how we understand it finally. She's not allowed to marry this guy and no one else either. Lo tenase. Why should she not marry the guy? Because again, we're talking about I'm divorcing you on condition you marry Billy. So you can't marry Billy, as we said many times. It looks like women are being given over as a gift. However, you can't marry someone else. You have to fulfill the condition, and the condition was to marry Billy or whoever. Therefore, if you marry Billy, because the gezerah is not going to be enough to remove it, because even though we don't want this to happen because it doesn't look nice, but the reality is that Tanai was Makayim, we fulfilled the condition, and therefore since the condition was fulfilled, so therefore the din is that they're divorced. However, Lachar Teitzi, she marries someone else, no, the boy will cumulate Tanai, and you cannot say, oh, she'll marry someone else, because again, who says that she doesn't have the authority to do so? Tadi give us to the Rabbi. Harizulo tinase lo acher. She's not allowed to marry any of them. Vimni says lo teitze acher teitze. However, we make this chilik, this distinction, if she marries the guy, Billy, let's say, so then lo teitze. But if it's someone else, then teitze. Tanuba. So let's look at question 1. Harizagite chamanash shetinasi leponi. On condition to get tzchal if you marry such a person. Mahu shetinasi leponi olacher. What's the din? Umatam. So it says like this: don't marry that guy because shema yomer nishin naisin b'matan, as we said before. However, la'acher, to marry someone else, it's a machlokas Rav and Rav Nachman. Are we chayish delotin nase achara v'ploini l'kayim tanayim nimsa get bottle? Is it shaykh that she could end up being Makayim the Tanai? Okay, weiter. I wouldn't have said that necessarily looks like a machlokas, but that's how it's read. Tanubana, new case. Harizeh gitech, a man says, this is your get, almanas shitapal l'rakia. He makes impossible requests, impossible conditions. So what does he say? He says, almanas shitali l'rakia. On condition that you go all the way to the sky. On condition that you go all the way down to the ground. Person says, on condition that you will swallow up a reed, which is 4 amos, which again, these are all things which are impossible. To be likana ben kuf amma. Or, again, you have to take this reed, which is 100 amos, which is also impossible. That you have to actually physically walk by the Yam HaGadol, by the Mediterranean Sea, by foot, which all these things are impossible. So, Einu get. Therefore, it's not a get, because the whole reason why the get is chal is only because you fulfill this condition. But if the condition cannot be fulfilled, then it's not a get. However, Behudim and Tema Omer is a get. Interestingly enough, he says no, it actually is a get. Why? Because Kol Omer Behudim and Tema. Kol Tanai Sheyeshul Kaima B'Saifo. If there's a Tanai which is basically impossible to be Mekayim, V'Hisnala Metchilaso. And at the very beginning, this was the condition made. Enu Ella Kimafliga B'Dvarim B'Kosher. All he is doing is trying to basically pain her with words, and therefore it's kosher. In other words, it isn't really a tanai. It's not really a condition, because he knows it's not shaykh to be done. So he's only mocking them, but it's not real. And therefore, because of that, even though it sounds like he made a tanai, the reality is it's not considered to be a tanai at all. And therefore, because of that, we say, in fact, they are going to be divorced. Okay. So that is the machlokas. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rab. Halacha k'bihud metema. The halacha is actually like the shita that it's a get. So Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Masnisin Abideka. I can prove this to you in the Mishnah. Ditani. Kol sheshel l'kayim of a soifa v'hislalav b'tchilaso tenai kayim. What does that say? Anytime you have a situation where it's possible to be mekayim it, so then it has to, the tenai must be fulfilled, which is mashma ha'i afshir, if it's impossible to do tenai batal shema mina. Now iboilahu. Now the Gemara asks a different question. Mahu. What if he says this is your get, but it's only on condition that you eat pig, which of course is there to do. So Rabbi, he almost sounds like a laugh, but he means it's the exact same thing. So it doesn't make any difference. That also is going to be the same thing. In other words, perhaps it could be also it's a machlokus, or again, that's something which is impossible to do. So if the halacha is that's not a tanai, this is also not a tanai. This is actually the same lashon in the Gemara Shabbos by Karmos to Rosh Rabbi. Rabbi Omer Efshir Achla V'Lakia. No, it's not true. It is possible to do. You shouldn't do it. It's a sin. But you could physically eat basar chazir. And if a person would do that, you would get malchus because it's a lav, but it is possible to be mekayim that tonight. So Abaya, according to Abaya Klal, when we have this general rule, Esui basar chazir, it's coming to include the case of basar chazir, that this is also something which is considered to be like ef shelakayim. L'rava kizeh is a muti basar chazir. It's actually coming to exclude that case in that it actually is a good tanai. And therefore, if you eat the basar chazir, you get malchus, but then the get will be chal. But you would have to eat the basar chazir in order for the get to be chal. Meisvei, Fret Gemara. Harzei gitich amanas shetibali leploini. Person makes the following statement. This is your get on condition that you have bia with a particular person. Okay? Niskayim hatanai harzei get. So if she listens to him and has bia with this guy, that's a get. The Yamav ain't a get. Amanas shaloti bali la'abul avich, on condition that you do not have bia with your father, my father. In chayshish shema nivel lahen. We're not concerned that she's going to actually have bia with him, right? So she could certainly get married, and therefore it's certainly going to be a get. We're not chayish that she's going to end up having bia with this man's husband, man's father. V'ilu, however, amanas shitibali la'abul avich lokatani. For some reason, it says that you don't do it. It doesn't mention that here's a get on condition that you do have bia with my father. So Abaye nicha, according to Abaye, it makes sense why it doesn't mention that case, because that's not considered to be like a tanai. However, Rava Kasha, according to Rava Takasha, look at Rashi, Mishum Dulididei Rabbi Huda ben Meseira Afilu Niskayim Hariz a get. Because according to Abaye, he says even if you're not mekayim this, it's still going to be a get. El Rava Kasha. Why? To Oimer Afilu Rabbi Huda ben Tema Moidaba. So your answer is Rava Bishlam Babasa Chazir. I can understand when it comes to eating pig. After the Achal Vlakis, you said you could eat it and get malchus. Ploni Nami, when it comes to having bia with Ploni, after Dimish Chada Dabein B'Mamoina, it's possible that you could have bribed with money. El Abba Vavich, when it comes to the father, that's not a condition. Bidida Kaima, is it really up to her? Nehi Abda Isura, I can understand that maybe she'll do the Avera. However, Abba Vavich mi Abdi Isura, who says that the father is going to end up doing the Isser? So it isn't a Tanai. So it's like walking across the ocean. Since she cannot fulfill it, since other people are involved to do the Isser. Okay. L'Rava Klal is le'asui Abba V'avich. Kazeh is le'muti basar v'chazir. Since she could technically do it, because it's only her. Question 2. This is a get, and it's only Michal if you go all the way to the sky. And he said a klal. So ma might Rabbi Huda ba'omer kazeh. What's he excluding? And what's he including with the word klal? So according to Rava, kizeh is excluding amanash taychli basar chazir, eating meat, eating basar chazir. And according to Abaye, the word kizeh is excluding almanas shetibali leploini, having be with such and such a person. Klal, according to Rabbi, is including almanas shetibali le'abel avich, and Abaye says the almanas shetachli baser chazir. So again, there's a machlok. The machlok is Rabbi and Abaye when it comes to the case of almanas on condition about eating baser chazir, whether or not that actually constitutes as a tanai or not. Okay, with that said, let's continue now to Pei Daled with Beis, which it really continues as we just said. Okay, says Rashi, the eno get when it comes to ploni, the eno get ad shetiboyalo. She would have to actually have bia for the get to be chal. The biyada, because it's in her hands, lahashchido b'mamoin v'yishenda beheter. That she could like give him a lot of money, and then she could marry him, right? So therefore, it is shaykh that she's mutter she is mutter to him technically. So therefore, she could just give him a lot of money, and that would entice him to marry her. Meisvi fret gemar. A person says, here's the get. However, it's on condition, as we said before, that you have to eat chazir. So v'im haisa zara al menashe v'im haisa zara al menashe toichli b'truma. If let's say she's a non-Kohen, and you say al menashe that you should eat truma, which is only something a Kohen's allowed to eat. V'im haisa nazir. Let's say she's a nazira al menashe tishti yayin. So all these things you're not allowed to do. So in this kaima tanai, but nonetheless, even though you're not supposed to do it, if you actually do it, how does it get? V'imlav enu get. So l'rav and nichel b'ay kasha. So according to Abaye, he says that no, these aren't conditions, but it seems like they are. So Amalek Abaye misavret divrei kol he doesn't say everyone. Hamani rabbanon he. So it's possible that again it's a machlokus. So but typically the masa mashkas b'tayrahu. Why would we say that this would work at all? You can't make a condition which goes against one of the mitzvahs. We know it's tanai batal. It's not a tanai at all. So when do we say that when a person makes a condition which is against something which the Torah tells us to do, that it's not a tanai? That's kagon she'ira ksusa vonasa. This is referring to, let's say, for example, the obligations that a husband has to his wife, providing clothing, being intimate, and food. The who ka'akar, because he's the one that's uprooting it. Avohacha ihi ka'akar, it's she that's doing it. Here, the one making this condition didn't do the isser. She did the isser of eating chazir. So the problem is you cannot be masama kasha b'Torah and you violate the isser. But here, you're the one making condition and someone else is doing the isser. So Masku Ravina, klum ka'akra ihi. The only reason why she's uprooting it, elzul kiyumi l'tanai, didei, is to fulfill his tanai. Ishtachach di'ihu ka'akar. So technically, it's really him that's causing the problems because he's the one that's forcing her almost to do this isser. Elam Ravina kiyamrina masamachash al mashakaz b'tayra tanai batal kigoyin shirkus v'anasa. When it comes to these things, devade ka'akar, because he's definitely uprooting them, because he's supposed to provide these things, and he says, I'm not doing it, I'm going to marry you, I don't have to do these things. It's nothing. Avahacha mi kamrula lo sagido achla lo techa lo tegarish. Who says that she has to do the isser? She doesn't have to violate the halacha. If she wants, she won't eat it, and she just won't be divorced, so she'll remain married to this interesting character. But the Metzias is, it's not a condition in which must happen. When it comes to something which must happen because this guy must provide these things, so he has a chiyuv to do so. If he doesn't provide these items, so then he's being masla, it's a masla mashkas b'Torah, so it doesn't work, and that's batal. Mashenkin over here, who says that she has to do this? It's shaykh that she could still remain married to this guy and never do the isser. And then the Mishnah said, Keitzad Yaseh, Yatulena Himena. So he said, in the situation, let's go back to the Mishnah. So the Mishnah said on the previous daf that in the event that it was not done properly, according to Chachamim, that if you said Hariyat Mukadesh, Hariyat Muteres Chaladam, you're free to everyone. However, you say El Waploni, so Chachamim say it does not work. So what you need to do is you have to take the get back, and give it back to her, but this time correctly say Hari Muteres L'Chol without excluding anyone. That's the Shita of the Chachama. So with that, we continue with the Gemara. It says as follows. So Mantana, so Omer Chizkiah, Rav Shimon Elezer, it's like him. The son of Rav Shimon Elezer, Omer, Ad Shiatlena Himena, you have to take it back from her, and give it back. And you have to say, Hey Gittin, here's your get. So this is talking about a different case where it was done improperly, where he gave her a get, but she didn't know it. She thought it was. He said, "Here's your receipt," or "Here's your I owe you. Here's a chov I owed you." So it was given maybe the right document, but it was the wrong words. So he had to actually take it back. So Rabbi Yochanan Mafil Tema Rabbi Dulichayin Omer Shani Hacha Hoyel V'kan Asoi Lipasobol Kahuna. Here she acquired the get on some level, and therefore she's actually going to be puzzle to kahuna. Says Rashi, Mishum Hachi Sarach Lachse Litleno. That's why I have to give it back. The Kanaso Menasina Kamaisa, because she actually was kind of with the first receiving with puzzle boy kahuna. She's now going to be puzzle to kahuna because it's kiyo like she's divorced. Hilkach Ilav the Hader Shakul Lemina. If he doesn't take it back, Lo Mahanya Amira, the Amir won't help. Shari Kvar Zachsel al Manas Tanai Rishon. So the fact that the giving of the get actually had some power, so therefore you just saying Har Materis L'Chol Adam is not going to work. When in case you just like threw it to her and you didn't explain it properly, so in that situation she didn't get it at all. So maybe in that situation you don't have to take it back. You can just say the right thing. However, here, since she actually was zeichet a little bit, so therefore it's different. Question 3. Harit Materis L'Chol Adam Elul Ploini Ketzid Yases. So you have to take it back. So Be'ezek get posel matzinu the Rabbi savar the chayzer v'oimerla bonasina acheres umay shna mahacha. So he says, if you say kinsi shtar chayv, as we said, here's your document of that I owed you money, even though it was really a get. Karasa, and she reads it, and again it becomes a get. But shani hacha, it's different over here. The kanasuli apostle kahuna, because the fact that she received it, it does have some validity that she's pasal the kahuna. Well, Hassam over there will zachsabul klum. So maybe that's the reason why there could be a chiluk of whether he has to give it back, take it back, and give it back again. Kasav b'saychay. So let's say kasav b'saychay. So let's continue looking in the language of the Mishnah. So it says that if, let's say, you wrote the Tanai actually in the get, you didn't say it. So even if you take the get back, erase it, and give her this get without the Tanai, still the din is that it is possible. So says the Gemara, let's say you wrote the condition in the get, Tanan. That's what it's referring to. Pshita, Tanan. That's what the Mishnah says. What are you telling me? So maybe it's referring to the situation where it was written after the Tayrif. Says Rashi, that it's written inside. Maybe it was written again after the writing of the Tayrif. Not to marry such a guy. Since the main part of the get was written Kaidem Haskar Sinai, the main part of the get was written before the condition, maybe a little missile b'madi armel sahadi kaisel manaskin. So again, since the Ikar get was written properly, so therefore maybe we should say that it doesn't make any difference, that even though it's true that the Ikar of the get was since the Ikar of the get was already written, and then after you wrote it after the Tayrif, so maybe it's okay. But let's say if you said al manas, the stipulation before the Tayrif, I feel al pen nami pasul, maybe we're going to be strict even if it was just a declaration. So the only, maybe there's the distinction is before or after the Tayrif. Kamash one, that no, it doesn't make any difference. It's totally on what's written in it. So therefore, if it was said, so then we're not gonna make a distinction lifnei haToref or achar haToref. Okay. The whole issue is afterwards. Now be possible. You're right. Even if it was just said, that condition will also cause problems. So those who wrote the get, they would keep the Baal silent to make sure that he did not make any conditions, that he didn't speak. Why? It must be for this reason. They wanted to be 100% certain to make sure that he's not going to say anything, so that if he did say a condition, that could possible the get. Tarnabon. Kol hatanoim poislin big get, Divi Rabbi. All tanayim, all conditions can possible if it's in the get, says Rashi. If you wrote inside the get, you're feeling the skayim hatanai. Even if the conditions were fulfilled, it doesn't make any difference. Anything that could be possible by you saying it, will also possible it when it's written down. Or anything which will not possible to get if it's said, so he says there's no difference between what you say and what you write down. Chutz, except shepoisel peh poisel b'ksav. Almanas she'enu poisel peh enu poisel b'ksav. So if you make the condition but use the word chutz, that will posel shepoisel peh poisel b'ksav. Whatever you posels out loud by saying the word chutz will also posel if you write it down. But if instead the language you use was almanas on condition, she'enu poisel peh, which will not posel al peh, it will enu poisel b'ksav, it will also not posel b'ksav. Says Rashi, why by chutz is it a problem? Dahavi shir beget, because you're leaving over something. You're not really doing a krisus because you're saying such and such except for such a person. Therefore, that's the reason why it's more problematic. Rav Zer machlokes. The whole machlokes, says Rashi, the almanas, the Rebbe Rabbanan, by saying the word almanas in our Mishnah between Rebbe and Rabbanan, b'shekasel lifnei haToref, is only if it was written before the Torah, the Ikar Haget. The Rebbe savar gazrin almanas atu chutz. He's concerned almanas because of chutz, which is definitely problematic. Rabbanan savar lo gazrin almanas atu chutz. We're not concerned of almanas that maybe you'll get confused with chutz, even though it's pretty easy to get confused. So only when it comes to chutz is it problematic, but I'm not going to be geyser if you wrote almanas. Achar tarif, that's before the tarif. Achar tarif, as we continue to pay him an olive, diria kol kosher. Everyone holds it's kosher. Masnisin de Gatani Kosmai, our mission that mentions that the condition was written down, v'kim the b'chutz, and we established that it's referring to a case that you said chutz, except of almanas will posel. However, when it comes to almanas, it does not posel. Eboy same, or you can say lifnei haToref, that really it's talking about before the tarif, and it's verbatim. The Eboy same achar tarif, that was written down after the tarif, after they could get b'divrei kol. The Rabbi Omer machlokes is lachar tarif. Really, the whole machlokes is after the ikra is written. The Reb of the get. The Rebbe savar gazrin atu lifnei haToref. You can be geyser after the tarif because of before the tarif, which is problematic. Rabbanan savar lo gazrin atu lifnei haToref. We're not geyser after because of before. Of lifnei haToref, if anything was done before, divrei kol possible will not be good. Masnisin the tiny kosmoi. Our Mishnah says it was written down, but kimna b'chutz of almanas lo posel. It says almanas doesn't posel. Achar haToref rabbanani. Tanya avoid the Rabbi Avin Kamei, the Rabbi Zera Kosev get al Tanai. If you wrote a get with a condition that says Divri Hakol Posel, everyone says it's Posel. Divri Hakol Posel, Bahamiflik Pligi. What are you talking about? Everyone. It's a machlokus. With Divri Hakol kosher, because everyone's kosher. The Hechidami. When is it possible that everyone could agree it's kosher? Lachar Tarif. If it was after the ikr of the get was written, so v'leima hari ze posel v'Rebbe. Why don't you say it's posel like Rebbe? So tana divrei kol asnuye. So it says divrei kol. That's how it was taught. Kosher b'posel michlafle. When it comes to the word kosher b'posel, it can be switched. Hari ze b'divrei kol the words harizeh and divrei kol lo mechafle. That's not something which could be switched. Okay, we'll stop there. Let's look at question TA 23. Klalai Rabbi ben Tema. Ma din l'shitaso im hisna almanash shetoichli basar chazir or almanash shetoichli abba v'avich. So he says like this: Babasar chazir ma'achlokas abayah b'rava uva abba v'avich u'kuliyama havi kamaflig v'devarim v'kosher. So when it comes to the case of abba v'avich, he holds that no, it's definitely he's just causing troubles, and therefore it's kosher. It's not really considered to be a tanai. However, when it comes to chazir, that we established was a machlokas. Okay, let's see. TA 24, which we also had today. If you have the case of get shekasul boy b'tanai, so if a get was written with a condition, him who kosher alim b'chachamim that kol sheinu poisel alpeh inu poisel b'ksav. Difficult question. So he says, "L'achar ha'toyref kosher. L'ifnei ha'toyref pluta b'gemara." So after the toyref, let's see where it says this. Machlokis. So Omer Rav Zera machlokis l'ifnei ha'toyref. Right? Is that how he's answering it? 24. L'ifnei ha'toyref is actually a machlokis. It's actually up here then. This is according to the sheet of Rava. So he says, the machlokas is after the tayrif. However, avalifnei tayrif dibri hakol pasul. And there's two ways to read it, but this is how he says la'achar tayrif kashul lifnei tayrif machlokas. Okay, so there's two different girsais over here. There's two different possible answers. Okay, so TA 24 is also on Pei Amud Aleph. Okay, question TB 23. Klal Omer Rabbi Basera. Ma also asui zaklal Rabbi ben Basera. What's he coming to include? So according to Rabbi, is in coming to include if you say amanash taycha basar chazir. According to Rava, amanash tibalu abba vavich adka.